There's a person who I personally know, and I was very lucky enough, maybe, let's just say, to have met this person in Pranic Healing Circle. And this is one such person. By the way, I don't know how many of you guys are non-pranic healers have not much idea about pranic healing? Nobody almost. Okay, good. So there is one person which I met in Arhatik Ashram, I think 2014 December, about 10 plus years back. And this person was personally taught by Master Chokup Soy techniques of pranic healing in the inner world. And before physically meeting in 2007, this person would go to the inner world every night for months and months and months and months and months. Master Choka would teach her the techniques, and maybe her and a couple of other disciples, like a few other disciples, maybe, or probably only her, I don't know. And he would train her in the inner world. And the story was verified by Master Hector later on. And not just that, that is just a little thing. 2007, 2006, I think, she was sitting in Italy. She is from Spain, was sitting in Italy. And somebody had asked her to come to this session, and she went, and along comes Master Choa from like there was this entry or to the hall, and the chairs over here, then the dais is over here. So Master would coming from the center, and he would take the left turn, and then he would go to the stage, right? Something like that. So Master came, he passed by the aisle, I mean, passed by the center line, and he went to take the left turn, and then he came back, and he comes to her and says, and now finally we meet. And then he goes to and takes the stage. Can you imagine how stunned she would be that a person she's been seeing in the sleep life for almost God knows how many months actually exists in the real life? And he knows exactly. When I heard this, the hair on my like, woo, like it was so, which means these kind of people do exist in the Brannigan circle. If you're lucky enough, you'll actually get to know their. See, I was trusted enough to share this, of course, and without revealing the name, I'm sharing the whole story with you. Um, Most people who have experiences as real as this will not share it with you. You matlab not you personally, but like generally with people. And there are many such more experiences of this particular person, by the way. But this is enough for now to get us all started. All right. So it's almost along the lines of the story that when you're ready, the teacher will appear. She was ready in the inner world or whichever world. The teacher appeared, taught her a lot of things. And that's probably why her approach to pranic healing is very different than any other person's approach to pranic healing I've seen. And that is probably what inspired me 2014, 15, 16. When I kept seeing her in the fortnights, she would come and we would just watch her. We would just watch her do healing, watch her do healing, watch her. And how do you think? How do you analyze? How do you come to this understanding? Just watch, 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 watch. How do you perceive? That I think pushed so many buttons inside of me. See, I just sorry to say, but I haven't seen Indian healers experimenting enough. And I've seen them experimenting so much with energy. But like, how do you even come up with these thoughts? I have not seen people experimenting up with this, with that, with that, with that, and trying to produce a result. She does that. I'm not saying every result is successful, but she said, let's try. That let's try is a very powerful phrase in my mind. And there's a lot of trials possible in the energy world, which by the way she opened my mind to. And she scans in such amazing ways. Those things basically made a foundation in my life, in my mind, to be able to think that a lot of things are possible which are not written only. You have to master the written stuff, absolutely yes, but the non-written stuff you have to be open enough to try. So, anyways, a lot of things came by interacting with her for. many, many months. All right, well, let's go forward. Let's do invocation first. To the Supreme God, to the great Divine Father and the great Divine Mother, thank you for your priceless blessings, for your divine light, divine love, divine power, divine healing, guidance, mercy, help, and protection. Thank you. To our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones, we very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings, especially to Neem Karoli Baba, also known as Maharaji, and to his great disciples. We very, very humbly invoke your priceless blessings for guidance, for love, for healing, for profound understanding, also blessings of prosperity and success in our life. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. All right, let's begin. All right, let's continue. A sadhu once came to the temple and upbraided Maharajji. You do nothing for people. You don't feed or help people. Maharajji said, give him a room and money. That's all. So chilled out, no? Give him a room and money. Like room and food and money. That's it. Like no insult, nothing personal. Just give him a room, food, and money. Wow. Yet all the other devotees felt like doing him was beating the sadhu exactly. See, they got him around a corner to do so, but Maharaj yelled at them. After the sadhu had eaten, he became very quiet. Maharaj said, the thing you people don't understand is that he is hungry. He hasn't eaten for 3 days. What else could he do but what he did? Wow. This, my friend, is called compassion. This is a classic textbook case of what compassion actually is. When you know the person more than the person knows himself, and you do exactly what needs. It's classic textbook example of what compassion is. So you always do the right thing. The right thing. In this case, the right was not to reply back. In this case, the right was to address the problem. Compassion. This is where we all need to get to. By the way, it's so powerful. Once I said, why do you feed so many people and why so much? I could eat 4 chapatis, flat unleavened bread, and stay alive. Maharaj answered, we have an inner thirst for food. We don't know of it. Even if you don't feel you can eat, your soul has a thirst for food. Take prasad. Wow. My understanding also is that the food was so very blessed with the Neem Karoli Baba's blessings, spiritual blessings, that when people eat a lot of food, they intake a lot of spiritual energy. Probably that's my guess, and the nature of the food that was served around Maharaji is worthy of note. For though it satisfied our souls, our intellects were often appalled. The usual diet at the temple consisted of white rice, puris, and potatoes, both fried, and sweets of almost pure white sugar. The diet was starch, grease, and sugar, and much black tea. All the sensitivity that the Western preoccupation with the diet had awakened in us screamed at this diet, and yet this was prasad. Did you reject prasad or did you give up your dietary models? What did you do when the love came in the form of starch, grease, and sugar and tea? Greasy potatoes were one thing, a blessing from Guru. However, was an entirely sorry, greasy potatoes were one thing, a blessing from the Guru. However, was an entirely different matter, which means your mind says greasy potatoes are not a very good thing, but the blessing from a guru was an entirely different matter. I previously believed that a saint should observe certain restrictions as to the food. Also, I never took tea or coffee, and I ate a very simple, small diet. I never took medicines. I wondered how people could take so many pills. After Maharaj left, I caught cold. At first, the doctors thought it was flu. They then said it was a more serious disease. So I had to take 15 pills a day to cure it. It was all Maharajji's play. The doctors also told me to put on weight. So from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I ate. I wondered how I could eat so much when previously I had eaten only two chapatis at a meal. All my old ideas vanished. See, it was all Maharajji's play, which means he orchestrated this so this person could eat. This was similar to what happened when I came to Kainchi. Kenchi, I think it's Kenchi, not Kanchi. Somebody told me the other day that it's actually called Kenchi. So, regards to that person, by the way. This was similar to what happened when I came to Kenchi, prior to which time I never drank tea. On the first day at Kenchi, I did not take it. And on second day when Maharajji asked me if I would drink tea, I didn't reply. The third morning he asked me, "Do you want tea?" You don't want it? Here, you should drink tea. That's like a perfectly, it's a cold place. So this time I drank tea, and since that day, I take anything, tea, coffee, whatever. When Maharaji spoke about his diet, he generally ignored the nutrition issues that so concern some of us. But he did suggest that we eat simple foods. And he also advised us to eat foods that was indigenous to the area in which we were living. See, this is an advice coming from a great master, okay? So we also should take it in exactly the same way. And then to various devotees, he gave specific instructions about diet, advising one to forego wine, meat, eggs, hot spices. See, to avoid wine, meat, eggs, and hot spices because they lead to an impure heart. Yet to another, by the way, eggs I still eat. I've seen Shriram eating, and probably, I mean, some other AY is also eating. After they clean it up, there's a technique of cleaning and pranic healing. You clean the eggs up properly, and when the energy is clean, you try and have the eggs. Because if you avoid eggs also, then where is like a good morning breakfast source of protein? Very hard to find, which is unprocessed. Eggs are relatively unprocessed, which is a good nutrition source, personally speaking. Okay. Yet to another, he said, "What is this concern with what is meat and what is not? When you can live without meat, well and good. When you cannot live without it, then you should have it." Some he counseled to eat alone, silently, simply, or with a few people. To others, his instructions concerned the value of fasts 3 times a month. Although when you were around him, he interrupted any fast you might attempt. From this confusion of instructions, most of us came away with the feeling that he was counseling us to trust our intuitions rather than to get too caught in rules. At least that is what we wanted to hear, because he fed us all so unstintingly with love and attention as well as food. We sought ways to reciprocate. Yet his life was so simple that there was nothing to give. So most people brought flowers or food, especially fruits and sweets. These he would then distribute by his own hand, or touch the food and then have it distributed. Such touching or blessing by such a being as Maharaji converted the food vibrationally from a physical material to a prasad. In the absence of the physical form of such a being as Maharaji, food is offered in the heart and the mind of the devotee before partaking. If food is offered purely, the beings to which it is offered accept an essence from food, which means that, by the way, if the food is offered purely, the beings to which it is offered accept an essence from the food, which means that if Maharaji sort of gives the sweets with purity with his blessing, the one who will be taking it will absorb the essence also, which is why it is said that don't just eat meat, because with meat comes the essence of meat, with pork comes the essence of pork, right? I mean, pigs don't stay in a perfectly healthy environment. They probably stay in gutters, in that sense. So it's not a very good diet. So if the food is offered purely, the beings to which it is offered accept an essence from the food. Then we eat what is left, which has become prasad. In the West, this would be similar to our saying grace before eating. Maharaji also showed a continuous concern for the quality of the food that was being distributed from the kitchens of the temple. He would call the cooks and examine the food. If it was poorly made, he would yell. If it was unnecessarily extravagant, he would yell. Basically, he's a really cool person. See, by now you understand that yelling is not necessarily anti-spiritual. Yelling or shouting is not necessarily anti-spiritual. I want you to absorb this. कि जो हमेशा शांत रहे चुप रहे not necessarily that he is spiritual at all. Master got angry so many times. I mean, I remember an example where Master Chokuksoi, the founder of Pranic Healing, who's also, by the way, my spiritual teacher, and his story was being told by one of the disciples called Master Hermy now. And she and Master Choa, they all, another few people, they were going to buy some sort of medicine in the night. By the way, the pharmacy was open and there was nobody inside. And Master Hermes said, "Oh, why don't we go inside and we'll get a medicine?" And there's nobody there. Master Choa looked at her in such anger. I mean, his eyes were so furious, and she was like, she was internally she was becoming like this. Of course, it was a really not a very good thing to say or do. Of course, they didn't do it, but this was, and there are other examples also where Master got angry and lost his temper. It showed that he's a human being. That's more important thing to say. So, but everything had a proper reason. Nothing was out of ego. This is the most important thing. Nothing was out of ego. Everything was pure reason. There was justifiable reason why the anger was to train somebody or to help other people in some way. It was almost always that. All right. Page number 42. When I was living up on the hill in that little kuti, which is a hut, Maharajji would send me away with a box of food every evening. But when he gave it to me, he always checked the entire box, put his hands all through it. Wow, this is great, yeah. Wow. Maharajji would tell the mothers that the vibrations with which the food was cooked could definitely affect your state of mind. He would say that if you truly made your food prasad, it would purify you. But even if a very pure man, if he ate the food that was prepared without proper consciousness, that food would create confusion in his mind. He said that eating purely prepared food more made a yogi great. Wow, that's awesome. There was another story I'll tell you. The story was that there was somebody, which I don't exactly remember who, but one of the monks, probably Hindu monks, I think, or maybe a Buddhist monk, I don't know exactly, I don't remember, was meditating at a cave very, very high up in the mountain, and this person would meditate 18 hours a day. In the remaining 6 hours, the person would sleep a little and eat a little and do daily chores and roam around, whatever, right? Very, very high up in the mountains. Um, Karmically speaking, one person was assigned by a great teacher to this person who would bring food from bottom of the mountain where his house was all the way to top of the mountain every day, once a day. He would bring fair amount of food, but once a day. And which means no matter where you are, you will always be given food. That is like the promise of the God who brought you down here. Okay, so let's not worry too much about it. Second important thing is that your like that person's vibrations would be holy and pure enough to be chosen for this specific kind of service to feed the person that advanced initiate who was actually meditating for I have no idea how many years actually. So you see, it's not that simple a thing. There are so many factors which are absorbed and taken into account that you have to have a house at the right position. Your vibrations have to be pure. Your house has to be that sanctified. You have to be willing. So a lot of other things are there also. Plus, you have to have that physical strength and structure. You can't miss a day. You shouldn't have any extra interest that can block the specific service. A lot of these things which has to be taken into account before you assign somebody a duty like this. It's really remarkable. Imagine every day and going up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill, up the. My God, it's crazy. But there are people who take this as a service and they put their lives onto it. When they come out, they're purified. I'm not just saying it, they are purified because if they're going up, they're probably chanting a mantra. If they're coming down, they're probably chanting a mantra. This is a kind of tap that, or you know, dedicated service that all of us in some form or the other need to do for many, 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 many years. Purification will happen. All right, let's go forward. At the market, I brought some clusters of green berries to give to Maharaji. They were kind of dirty, so I very carefully washed them. Then I put them back to the bag. But do you know how it is with Indian bags? It broke and the berries fell all over the ground. So I carefully washed them again, berry by berry. It took a long time. Finally, I brought them to Maharaji. Everybody else, of course, had also brought fruits. But the minute I put them down, Maharaji appeared very excited. He spread them all out very carefully, studied them, ate many of them himself, and distributed the rest as something particularly precious. I felt that he sensed the love and care with which I had prepared the berries. Wow. For some time, Maharaji would eat only the food prepared by one particular Ma. See, this is why the purity vibration is important. She told me that if one day she was too busy and someone had helped her with it, she would refuse to eat. Sorry, he would refuse to eat it. She said that she would sometimes lie to him just so that he would eat the food. She would say that she had cooked the food by herself without help. Still, he would push it away. He seemed to be able to feel the difference. Oh my God, that's amazing. Take chai. My Brahmin grandfather took his food alone. My Brahmin grandfather took his food alone, as was the tradition. The food was specially prepared for him by my wife. He had started to eat when Maharaji arrived, so father ordered more food prepared. My wife wanted to give Maharaji a special item of food that she made for grandfather. So she gave some to Maharaji. Father got angry. How can you give Maharaji other than freshly prepared food? He asked my wife. The grandfather basically asked the wife. Then Maharaji called him and said, the freshly prepared food was eaten by the sadhu. The special food offered out of such pure love was eaten by God. Wow. See? Wow. Wow, it's such a perfectly good answer, no? Sadhu was a grandfather, by the way, right? Then Maharaji called him and said the freshly prepared food was eaten by Sadhu. Special food offered out of such pure love was eaten by God. That's amazing. Most of the time, Maharaji ate alone and distributed all that we devotees brought to him. But it was each person's dearest desire when we brought the fruit or other food that Maharaji eat some of it himself. And when he did, it felt like such precious moment, one in which Maharaji had accepted a token of your love. Once when I brought a soft apple and peeled it and cut it up and held it up before him, as I had seen the Indians do, he reached down and took a few pieces from my hand and experienced that ecstasy that you might feel if a wild bird or deer had come and eaten out of your hand. This is great from Ramdas. Next, Maharaji was sitting the black in the back in Kenji by the showers. Late one afternoon, we were offering him pomegranate seeds, most of which he was eating one by one. Others he was handing out to people around him. One of the Indians started giving him some of them back to him. Maharaji continued eating them obviously and passing them out. The next thing you knew, it had developed into this great little game. People were passing the pomegranate seeds under the tucket, passing them back so that I could keep giving him more. He ended up eating all the seeds. Though they had recirculated several times, we shared the delightful conspiracy of feeding and fooling him. Funny. I purchased a dozen oranges to take to Maharaji. We arrived at the tiny temple where Maharaji was visiting and where many Indian devotees already had gathered and were crammed into his room. As soon as our presence was made known, we were pushed to the space just in the front of the wooden table on which Maharaji sat. I offered the oranges to him. There was already much fruit and some sweets on the table. But then something happened that surprised me. Maharaji started to go at my oranges as if he had never seen food before. As each orange was opened, he would grab it and eat it very rapidly. And before my eyes, he consumed 8 oranges. Wow! I was being fed the other four at Maharaji's insistence by the school principal. Later, I asked KK, a close Indian friend, about this peculiar behavior. KK explained that Maharaji was taking on karma from me, and that was this was a technique by which he often did that. Ramdas. That's very, 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 very unique, no? Wow. The meaning of taking on karma is that a very high being such as Maharaji can work with subtle vibratory pattern and can take from devotees patterns with which they have been stuck for this lifetime or many lifetimes. For example, such a being could take away your sorrow or your ill fortune. This process, which is familiar one among Indian saints as well as sorcerers and medicine men from many parts of the world, can be done in a variety of ways. Often, the medicine man works with a lock of hair or the fleece or the feces or urine of the person suffering the effects of some negative forces, either inside or outside themselves. In India, such karmic healers often work with things the devotees give them. Shirdi Sai Baba, a very great saint of India, would ask his devotee for annas, small coins worth less than a penny. These he would handle continuously until he had extracted the negative condition from the devotee unto himself. This negative material he then could release from himself by other yogic processes. Which means if he takes the karma, he would release it from himself by other yogic processes. Another well known guru in India asks his devotees for cigarettes and smokes from morning till night, year in, year out, often 3 or 4 cigarettes at a time. Maharaji's way was to eat the karma, and he seemed to have no limit to his capacity. One woman, long standing devotee, told the following story. Once in Bhumiyadhar, where Maharaji was staying at the night, we had all taken our evening meal and had retired at 10:30 p.m. Around 1 a.m., Maharaji started yelling that he was very hungry and that he must have dal and chapati. I awoke and reminded him that he had already eaten, but he insisted that he must have dal and chapati. Who can understand the ways of such a being? So I woke Brahmachari Baba, the priest, and he built a fire and prepared the food. It was ready about 2 a.m., and we watched Maharaji consume the food with great hunger. Then we all retired again. At about 11 the next morning, a telegram arrived saying that one of the Maharaji's old devotees had died down on the plains about 150 miles away the previous night at 2 a.m. When the telegram was read to Maharaji, he said, "You see, that's why I needed chapatis and dal." Wow. This aroused our curiosity because we didn't see at all. We pressed him, but he would say nothing more. Finally, after 2 or 3 days of our persistence, he said, "Don't you see? He, the man who had died, had been wishing for chapatis and dal, and I didn't want him to carry that desire on through death for it would affect a future birth. Wow, that is remarkable. That is remarkable. Don't you see? He, the man who had died, had been wishing for chapatis and dal. And I didn't want him to carry that desire on through death, for it would affect a future birth. Wow, so much compassion, yeah? Sometimes, when visiting homes, he would come to the door and say he was very hungry and ask if he could eat. In very poor homes where there might not be any food, he would just say he was very thirsty and ask for water. In Lucknow, Maharaj took some public works officials in a car to the poorest parts of town where these officials do not take proper care of the roads and sanitation. From one of the shacks, he called forth a Muslim, whom Maharaj called a Musalman, and they embraced. And then Maharaj said, "I'm very hungry, but Maharaj, I have no food." Aap, wicked one, you have two rotis, flatbreads, hidden in the roof. The man was surprised that Maharaj knew and he got them. Even though Maharaj and the officials had just eaten, he ate one with relish and handed the other to the officials, including the Hindu Brahmins, who would never eat food prepared by a Muslim, and said, "Take prasad." Wow, wow, that is amazing. Wow. When Maharaj came to Lucknow, to the Lucknow temple for the last time, he would say to each person who came, if he or she could afford to do so, go get sweets. And when they would return with sweets, he distribute them. Almost 1500 rupees worth that day. By the way, this is, I think, 1939, 1949, right? 1500 is like a huge sum, huge sum. Huge sum. I mean, 70 rupees was like the complete salary of a senior official, of a senior government official, which was a very recognized post, by the way. Entire city knew a person like this. 70 rupees. What about 1500 rupees? That is a lot of money, by the way. No jokes. Wow. One doctor brought 1,000 rupees worth of sweets, and the personal problem causing him concern was solved. Wow, 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 wow. In the period between 1939 and 1949, when Maharajji would come into a town such as Nainital, all the women would prepare food in the hope that he would come to their homes. They did not They did it out of mixture of loving service and the feeling that it was a blessing to feed such a saint. And KK, who followed him from early morning until late night, once watched him consume 24, oh my God, 20 full meals in one day. And it's insane amount of food. But wow. Another reported watching him take 10 meals in a row. Oh wow. Oh wow. And if you have been to India, understand that the graciousness of the Indian home, where the guest is treated as God, you will appreciate the immense portions and the persistence in feeding. Like people, they bring food and food and food, and an Indian meal is more than ample for a normal human being. But perhaps Maharaj's immense capacity represented something other than dietary requirements. One morning, Maharaj said to the people at the ashram, "You people can't feed me or take care of me. I'm going to Ma. She'll feed me." And he left for the ashram of Anandamayi Ma. By the way, I hope you guys know who Anandamayi Ma is, right? She's a great female saint who is known to be self initiated, by the way. A great woman saint of northern India. During the entire trip, he was saying, "She'll feed me. I'm going to see Ma. She'll feed me." Then he burst into the darshan room like a child of 5, with his blanket flying in all directions. She was sitting there and he was saying, "Ma, feed me, Ma." She exploded in laughter. A huge meal was brought to him, and the two of them passed it out to all the devotees. Wow, what a play. Again and again, Maharajji enjoyed. By the way, this was a paragraph which I first read when I got inspired to start this particular book. This was a paragraph. I think I read it in Instagram somewhere, and I wanted to start this book because I read and I was very inspired with this one paragraph. Again and again, Maharaji enjoined us to feed people. His concern was not merely for his own devotees, but with all people who hunger. He would say, God comes to the hungry in the form of food. And to the cooks, he would say, making food is a service to God. People need food to stay alive. He used to say that you should serve everything, every creature. It is all God's creation. Serve everyone, whether he be a dacoit, a thief, or anything else. This is very important for us also. Serve everyone, whether he be a thief, a dacoit, डाकू को भी, and या और कोई हो तो उसको भी. If he comes to you hungry, give him food. Wow, see, this is the lesson in compassion, by the way. Which means you try and help to your ability from a distance, maybe, even to those people who have hurt you. That is what he's trying to say. Ki people who may hurt you, people who hurt you, don't shrink away from helping them, from serving them in one way or the other. This is um, this is one thing which is very, very important. Everyone has a right to be fed. Maharajji's own behavior set a dramatic example for us. Besides feeding all who came to have his darshan, he was continually arranging for large bhandaras, celebrations consisting of mass free feeding for all comers, including the wealthy, the poor, the beggars, the lepers. The people were fed when they arrived, for Maharajji instructed a starving person should not have to wait. Such a person should be fed when he is hungry. All these great bhandaras, which often served 1,000 or more, many devotees would vie to help in the preparation and distribution of the food. Here, judge and merchant, teacher and politician could all be found peeling potatoes, stirring the huge pots, or ladling out the halwa or rice with huge spoons. The Kumbh Melas were even more festive occasion. These are gathering of hundreds of thousands of sadhus, saints and seekers who come from all over India in order to bath in the confluence of three rivers, the Ganges, Yamuna and the Saraswati. An underground spiritual river, देखो, and the Saraswati. Saraswati, by the way, is the underground spiritual river at an auspicious astrological moment. Yeah. It is like the huge spiritual fair that goes on for a month or more. At the Melas, Maharaj's tent usually served 250 to 500 a day for at least a month. That is a lot of potatoes to be peeled. During these celebrations, Maharaji demanded hard work of the devotees, and many saw these experiences as training in discipline. One devotee describes the experience this way. At the Mela, they prepared khichdi, a rice and dal mixture, but the serving spoon was very heavy, and soon the servers, growing tired, began to serve only small portions. As a result, the beggars would stand in line again and again to get enough to eat. Finally, one of Maharaji's devotees got very angry, and just as Maharaji arrived from Chitrakoot, a place sacred to devotees of Ram, he yelled at them all and said that they could not serve food with anger and that they should give plenty to everyone. Wow, this is really, really good. Another pointing out Another, pointing out that the devotees were not even praised for working so hard, said no matter how hard people worked at the melas and bhandaras, Maharaji would say, you people are playing and going about doing nothing. You're always sleeping. Wow. 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 See the way to humble people. Pointing out to the devotees were not even praised for working hard. Well, somebody else said that, and he says ki no matter how hard people worked at the melas and bhandaras, Maharaji would say, you people are playing and going about doing nothing. You're always sleeping. Man. I don't understand this actually, but okay. Although people were continually bringing food to Maharaji, which he distributed, sometimes there were more to receive than there were givers. It was at these times that the discerning eye caught Maharaji manifesting what is known as the Siddhi or the power of Annapurna. In Annapurna is the goddess of grain, the aspect of the divine mother that feeds the universe. One who has Annapurna Siddhi can keep distributing from a store of food, yet it will remain full. Wow. Siddhi of Annapurna, that's brilliant. On a feast day at the temple, when I was quite young, they were giving out special sweets. Maharaji gave me a small leaf cup of these sweets and said that he had been keeping especially for me. Then he said, "You give those sweets back to me." So I gave them to him because I had such faith in him. He put the leaf cup under his blanket and began distributing those sweets from under his blanket. I don't know how he did it, but he gave a handful to each person in that huge crowd of at least 1,000 people. I was so surprised I couldn't understand how he could be distributing so many more sweets than the number of sweets I had given to him. So, being just a kid, I stuck my hand under his blanket and took out the leaf cup to see. Maharaji turned to me and said, "Now the magic is finished." Wow, oh wow. By the way, this is a very similar example that Lord Jesus, I think, performed um, when he, remember when 5,000 people came to see him, and when he asked, and by the way, they were waiting for him for quite some time, huh? And when he asked in the crowd how much food do we have, and there was only I think one or two fish were there, and half bread was there, I think, right? And in a small tokri is a small basket, and then they would say in the name of God, I think may the food multiply, or may the food be met, and he would raise the bucket and the bucket would be full. And then he says ki, to all those of you who have faith in me, karke, you also, everyone would raise the bucket, everyone's bucket would be full. That's why they had food for 7 days. 7 days worth of food was there after that. It's remarkable stuff, unthinkably remarkable. But this is when you realize that you're dealing with beings who are really really potent in their growth, unmatchable in that sense. A man brought some oranges to Maharaji and put them in an empty basket by his side. Maharaji started giving the oranges to the people in the room and then to the others in the temple. The man had brought 8 oranges and Maharaji gave out 48. Oh, wow. At the Mela, many came to the tent and Maharaji told us to prepare tea for all those people. No one wanted to tell Maharaji that they had run out of milk. Finally, someone did, and Maharaji said, "Go and get the container of water from the Ganga and keep it covered with cloth." All that day and until that midnight that night, there was plenty of good tea with milk. Oh, okay. All that day and until the midnight that night, there was plenty of good tea with How does he do that? How does he do that? Maharaji called me over to sit with him while he was throwing prasad, food offerings. He was eating small biscuits from a small plate with only a few biscuits. You see, most of the stories about here are about eating and food. You understand this, right? I think that was his primary way of service. For example, most of the stories of Master Choy would be about healing and meditation and those things, right? That is his primary way of teaching and serving. But I think with him, most, if not all, are about food, or at least that is what it sounds like up until now. Like that is a way of his service, maybe. Maharaji called me over to sit with him while he was throwing prasad, food offerings. He was eating small biscuits from a small plate with only a few biscuits. Maharaji started giving me biscuits, taking them out of the biscuit plate with his hand. He kept taking more out until both my hands were full and I couldn't separate them because of the amount of prasad. Either I had been upset observing Maharaji, thinking prasad should be given, not thrown. He knew that, and that is why he called me back and started giving prasad into my hands. Wow, see? Because he thought that prasad should be given and not thrown, he called him actually to the front and wow, into the hands. Maharaj once called me in Allahabad to tell me that he had come down to Vrindavan. When I arrived at Vrindavan ashram, there were only a few people there. One woman came for darshan bringing a bag of wonderful apples. You can't imagine how big and delicious looking they were. Maharaj began distributing them, and I thought surely he would give me one as well. But he didn't. He gave a few to the other devotees, and the rest he gave back to the woman. She wouldn't give me one either. Oh, how tightly she tied them back in her bag. Shortly afterwards, Maharaji crossed the yard and he went into a room alone and sat on the tucket in there. Then he called me in alone. I don't know from where it came, but he put his hand down beside him on the tucket and handed me an apple, even bigger, more luscious than those the woman had given him. And then he handed me another apple. I don't know where they had come from because I had seen for myself that he hadn't put kept any from the woman, which means he's basically magically producing food. In short, I was accompanying Maharaj from Allahabad. By the way, I hope you guys also remember that from the book study of what's his name? Mm, um, One second. Living with the Himalayan Masters by Swami Rama. A very beautiful example was actually given where Swami Rama goes to meet a specific devotee, and not a devotee per se, but he was probably yogi who was staying at the bank of a river far away from the main city, and that to a distant bank, not like a bank where everyone comes and visits, and in a small cave kind of structure over there. And that person would also be able to just put the hands on the pebbles and they would turn to proper food. He would materialize food by just touching the pebbles. So I think this is Siddhi. The Siddhi usually probably comes when you've mastered a specific area of your character. This is very, very important to know. Siddhis are nothing else but your absolute mastery over a specific character or a specific virtue. That is what a Siddhi is. And a certain degree of mastery will lead you to a certain degree of manifestation of Siddhi. I think is how it works. Now, when Maharajji handed me one orange, I put it in the right breast pocket. The second one, I put in the left breast pocket. They created such bulges that I looked like a woman. Then he handed me a third, which I put in my pants, and a fourth in the other pocket. And he kept on giving me more, so I had to catch them in my shirt tails, front and back. He gave me so many oranges I could hardly move. I started giving these sweet oranges out to others, saying, "This is the best prasad I have to offer today." To this day, I don't know how he came by those oranges. Wow, number 50. At the Kumbh Mela in 1966, Maharajji was sitting on the bank of Ganga with two or more sadhus. He told us to bring him a lot of Ganga water. He held it for a few minutes and then told us to distribute it. It was milk. To all but the closest devotees, Maharaji tended to mask these powers and would often use a cover story to make it appear as if he had nothing to do with the additional food. See, except the closest devotees, he would mask these powers. When Maharaji established a Hanuman temple on a site that had previously been a burial ground, a great Bandara was held to set free the wandering spirits. Late at night, it was discovered that the ghee, clarified butter, had run out. The man in charge of the stores went to Maharajji and told him that there was shortage of ghee, although many people were still coming to be fed. How were they to provide? Maharajji replied, "Go there and check among the empty canisters. You'll find somewhere a full tin." Although the man knew that they were all empty, as he himself had checked and counted them, he went and indeed he found a full tin among the empties. That is amazing. How is that amazingly possible? One man stayed with Maharajji for many years as a sort of attendant. He'd keep Maharajji's clothes, help him bathe and fetch water, and so forth. He performed much service and slept at Maharajji's feet to always be nearby. His practice was to keep fast on Tuesday, taking only milk. One day, Tuesday, Maharajji offered him some food but he refused, saying he'd take milk. The whole day passed and he wasn't given any milk. Late at night, Maharajji asked him if he had eaten or drunk milk. He said no, he was fasting. But milk he'd had. Maharaji said, "You're lying. Tell me the truth. No one gave you milk." Maharaji's shouting awoke the ashram. Maharaji questioned the cook and found that no one had remembered to give him his milk. And by now, none was in the ashram. Maharaji got up and went to his room. He called the man in and told him to lock the door. Maharaji asked the time. It was after midnight. Maharaji said, "You haven't eaten all day. It's after midnight. Can you eat now?" "It's Wednesday." The man said he could. Maharaji reached to his dhoti, cloth used to cover the lower part of the man's body, and took out five parathas, fried breads, and two types of vegetables. Maharaji said, "It's God's prasad, Ram's prasad." The man started to leave so he could eat it outside, but Maharaji stopped him and told him to eat it there. When he was finished, Maharaji produced a small amount of kheer, a sweet rice pudding. This is the man who this the man also ate and then started out of the room to get water. Maharaj again stopped him. "Where are you going?" "Here's water." Water was kept near Maharaj's bed for his use in the night. But the man wouldn't use Maharaj's vessels. Maharaj poured the water into his mouth. Then Maharaj told him not to tell anyone about the evening. Wow. Wow. But I'm very grateful that he did, so we all know about it, no? Often the process of disguise would involve incredible abuse. See, often the process of disguise would often involve incredible abuse. This is also a great teacher's way of working, by the way. It's very important. It's very hard to understand. You've seen those Buddha Padma Sambhava, the wrathful deity, with that very weird wrathful faces, angry faces. That's another way of divine expression. Divine expression does not only look like a very peaceful, happy, smiling, happy Buddha monk. No, that is one way, but that is not the only way. It encompasses all variations. I probably suggest we stop here, otherwise we can just go on and on and on. So this is good. I'm liking this book so much now. Let's do a closing prayer, everyone. To the Supreme God, to the great Divine Father and the great Divine Mother, thank you for your great blessings. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. To our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones, we incredibly humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone, take care and see you next time. Bye bye. Have fun. Thank you so much. Thank you.